Hello and welcome back to Popcorn Chat. I hope you guys are doing well. This week we're going to be talking about Netflix's latest release, The Prom, which came out this weekend and I watched it yesterday, so Friday, when it originally came out, and I'm going to talk about it for you today in this week's video. It was directed by Ryan Murphy, who you probably know that name if you've seen Glee, Pose, Ratched, The Politician, American Horror Story, all those sorts of shows he's been involved in. So the film follows a young girl called Emma who wants to go to her prom as an outright lesbian and wants to go with her date, and the school sort of shuts that down straight away. So we then have these Broadway stars who have had their day, then they go on the internet and see how they can boost their public profile, and they come across Emma's story and they want to get involved for self-gain, of course, and they go to the school and try and sort of rally up that, she should be included, everyone should be included, and it takes a few twists and turns. And we see a lot of character development within this film, and people learn a lot about themselves. And yeah, it's a bit of a fun journey and some great songs along the way. Prior to seeing this film, I heard of the musical production and I've listened to about the first half of the soundtrack. And I thought some of the songs were okay, but I didn't finish it, so I never really got to know what the narrative was and how the sort of story ended. So I really was going into this film pretty blind. I knew the concept and that was it, but the ending itself I had no idea what it was about, so it felt like a really good sort of uplifting film by the end of it. Overall, I thought that Ryan Murphy's direction was very colourful, very over the top. Obviously, if you've seen Glee or anything like that, you understand that. And there's a lot of moving around the camera, a lot of 360 degrees, whether it's in song or just two characters having a conversation. It was a little bit over the top when that could have just been done, the static tripod or like a slow zoom in, a bit of a jib. But one of the standout moments for me was when Andrew Rannell's character does the song Love Thy Neighbour in the mall, and he sort of tries to sort of talk to these sort of popular children who sort of, kicked Emma out of the prom, and sort of tries to make them understand that, okay, you're saying you're Christians, but you've done this sin. And I thought this moment really reminded me of the Book of Mormon, and of course, like, he sort of starred in that originally, he pioneered that, and I thought that was definitely a really good sort of calling back. So I'd like to see what he says about that number, because it just made me think of Book of Mormon with the sort of humour and the musical elements within that. So I really liked that number. That one really stood out for me. I know there's been a lot of talk about James Corden's character within this film, playing a sort of typical Broadway star who is gay, and he's obviously a very heterosexual man, he's married to a woman, has children, and people are sort of saying there's plenty of Broadway stars that could have played this role. We could have got the original guy back from the original show, however they didn't. You've got other stars in there, you've got Meryl in there. You see Meryl on a poster, that's going to draw you in. There are so many things wrong, I think, with James Corden's casting, and I think, first off, I thought his accent was pretty bad in this. I definitely heard him slip into the English accent quite a few times, and I didn't really believe his sort of emotional connection with the character, especially when we learn about Barry's sort of history and his prom and his sort of coming out with his family. I don't really know what he attached to as an actor in that point, and I think you can see that on screen. So maybe, yes, I think that could have been a role which could have been recast by anyone. Anyone could have done that role a lot better, and it is a shame because I didn't realise how pivotal a character he was in this film, again because I didn't finish the soundtrack. So yeah, I think there should have been a different actor for Barry. It's very hard for me to tell if they've changed anything within this, because that happens a lot with a musical adaptation into a film. A lot of creative license is there, and sometimes they change the narrative. Like, you think of like Hairspray, that's so different to the actual stage one, but I prefer the film. So I'd be really intrigued if anyone has seen the show or knows a bit more about the musical itself, if you could let me know if there was any significant plot points that have been changed with Ryan Murphy's direction. I'd be really intrigued to know. Overall, I did think this film was pretty enjoyable. There was some really good moments, some really emotional moments, but overall I thought it was okay. There wasn't sort of gripping moments, it sort of lost its way in the middle, but I think there's some great songs in there. I definitely will be listening to the soundtrack a bit more now that I've heard them fully. So overall, I think it's a good film. So if you are into musicals, you're into musical films, or you like any of the actors that appear in it, definitely give it a go, and let me know what you think of it in the comments. So I'm going to give The Prom 3 out of 5 stars. I hope you guys enjoyed this week's review of The Prom. If you've seen it, let me know what you thought of it in the comments. Hopefully this film has inspired you to watch it if you haven't already. It's a perfect film to watch on a Sunday rainy afternoon, so definitely go and watch it if it's the sort of film that you're into, and I'll be intrigued to see what you think of it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next week for another popcorn chat.